Hey guys, tonight we're going to do something a little different. You're not curling up with a soft story about dreamy gardens or quaint tea rituals. Nope, tonight you're waking up before dawn inside the high walls of a 12th century Korean palace. You're not royalty, not even close. You're a court eunuch. Yes, one of those eunuchs. And before you wince, no, there's no going back. Your life now revolves around royal chambers, secret scrolls, herbal ointments, and about 12 hours of being invisible to everyone above your station. You'll serve kings, queens, and scholars, but you'll always sleep on straw. And yes, you'll be expected to know everything, but say almost nothing. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? And what time is it where you are right now? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The palace compound is still blanketed in blue-black darkness. There are no chirping birds yet, no firelight dancing behind paper windows, just a strange lingering chill that clings to the stone walls like a ghost that forgot how to leave. And then it begins, the pre-dawn gong, a low, resonant boom that rolls over the rooftops like distant thunder. You jolt upright on your straw mat before your body even knows what's happening. It's automatic by now. You've trained yourself to wake on the first sound. A second too slow, and the senior eunuch will knock you in the ribs with his bamboo stick. Not hard, but just enough to sting. And you don't want to be the one holding up the morning cycle. Your sleeping chamber is barely more than a box. No pillow, no blanket, just straw and your own thoughts. You shake the stiffness from your legs and fumble in the dim for your sash. Already, you hear the shuffling of others rising too, the soft creak of wood floors, and the occasional muffled groan. You're not alone in this strange fraternity of silence. Around you are men who carry invisible wounds, some fresh, some decades old, but all wearing the same mask of stillness. The air smells faintly of sandalwood ash from last night's temple incense. It clings to your robe and to your skin, which is always slightly damp from the cold. You haven't been warm in weeks. Not truly. The seasons have turned, and the stone floors suck the heat right out of your feet. But complaining, that's for officials. Not you. You're a shadow in silk. A fringe detail that historians still debate is how many eunuchs actually lived inside the palace walls at one time. Some say dozens, others argue hundreds, depending on the dynasty's paranoia levels. But either way, the number was large enough to form a sort of sub-civilization, invisible hands moving the levers of royalty while never claiming credit for a single triumph. You pull on your outer robe, the fabric whispering over your shoulders like the wings of a paper crane. It's finely woven, court standard, but colorless, a washed-out gray that helps you blend in like smoke. The only distinguishing mark is a tiny emblem stitched in white thread near your collarbone, the shape of a crane with one wing lowered. It means you serve the inner court, close to the queen's wing. You didn't ask for this assignment. You were simply reassigned one morning without explanation. As always, that's your cue to head toward the bathing room. But first, you do what every eunuch does at the start of the day. You slide open the door without a sound and step into the hallway. The wooden beams are slick with condensation. Lanterns aren't lit yet, so everything feels like a painting done in ink wash. Outlines, shadows, nothing solid. Somewhere down the corridor, a single clapper taps twice, a deep, quiet inhale. Not just to center yourself, but to check the palace. Each breath tells you something. Is the air warmer than usual? Someone lit a brazier early, perhaps a royal feeling unwell. Is there smoke? Maybe the kitchen fire started late, or worse, early. You learn to listen to the air because it's the only warning you'll get. You breathe. In the courtyard, the gravel crunches too loudly beneath your slippers. You wince. Even the gravel is political here. Make too much noise, and a noble might glance your way. Not enough, and a guard might suspect you're sneaking. It's a balancing act that requires daily precision. One of the older eunuchs once joked that the prince's ghost still snacks on the leaves. You didn't laugh then. You might laugh now. Maybe. As you approach the washing quarters, you pass a row of fig trees planted in honor of a crown prince who died before he could speak. The fruit is long gone, but the smell, earthy, a bit sour, lingers in the bark. Inside the bathing room, there's a basin of water waiting, rimmed with ice. No steam, no warmth, just a silver bowl, the kind that freezes your fingertips before you even dip them. You strip down to your underrobe, clench your jaw, and splash your face with the first handful. It hits like a slap, then again, then again. 3 times as tradition requires. Clean face, clean thoughts, clean day. That's the rule. You catch your reflection in the water's surface. Pale, eyes tired, mouth tight. But still, you nod to yourself. You are awake. You are in position. You will not be late. You dry your hands on your sleeve and move briskly down the narrow hall toward the supply room. A stack of fresh robes waits, perfectly folded, dyed soft gray with hints of indigo near the hem, a quiet mark of mid-tier status. You bow slightly as you pass the room's entrance, even though no one sees you. You do it out of habit or fear, maybe both. You step into place behind the southern gate, just outside the shrine hall, waiting for the sun to rise. And then, as the final chime echoes from the western tower, you stand in line with the others, forming a perfectly still row just outside the shrine hall. No one speaks. No one even coughs. The cold air burns quietly in your nostrils, and the robes clinging to your shoulders feel heavier than they should. This is the most sacred moment of the day, the moment before the world begins again. A priest inside lights a small bundle of incense, mugwort and pine, maybe a hint of dried chrysanthemum, and the smoke curls out into the courtyard like a beckoning finger. You follow it in. The shrine is quiet, but not silent. The wood creaks. Your slippers whisper across the smooth stone floor. The paper lanterns flicker as if sighing. You take your place on the mat nearest the back, always the back, kneeling with your spine straight and hands resting in your lap. You're supposed to empty your mind, but of course your thoughts don't get the memo. You think about your tasks for the day, about how the senior eunuch muttered something about a royal visitor arriving from the west, about the letter you saw yesterday with the red wax seal. Red usually means trouble, or blood, or sometimes both. And against your better judgment, you think about food, a bowl of hot rice with sesame oil and scallions. It's been weeks since you tasted anything that warm. But thinking about that now, that's already a slip. The temple bell rings once. Then again, your cue to bow. Your forehead touches the mat. The scent of old wood and crushed sandalwood blossoms fills your lungs. You stay there, 1 breath. 2. You raise yourself slowly. Across the room, the high priestess begins her chant. You don't know the words exactly. No one does anymore. They're in a language older than the court itself, but the rhythm is familiar. It thrums in your chest like a slow drum. You murmur along as best you can, and when you reach the end, you feel lighter, not better, just less full. There's a second ritual after the prayers, that one not listed in any official records. It's called confession, but not in the way you might think. It's done in whispers, in corners, in shuffled exchanges behind scroll cabinets. You kneel beside an elder eunuch, someone who's been here 20, maybe 30 years. You're supposed to ask if your heart has wandered, if your tongue has strayed, if your loyalty has frayed even slightly. And you do, because the ritual matters more than the answer. Did I serve with clean hands yesterday? You whisper. Your robe remains smooth, he replies. It means you didn't cause trouble. You didn't speak out of turn. You didn't cry. All wins, in their own way. Historians still argue whether these rituals served a spiritual function or merely reinforced control. Was it about cleansing the soul or keeping minds in check? Either way, it works. You feel realigned, recentered, ready for the absurdity that is palace life. As you exit the shrine, you pass by a strange object in the hall, a lacquered black box covered with silk tassels and little charms. You know what's inside. Everyone does. A ceremonial mirror said to reflect one's true self. It's only used during coronations or royal funerals, but it's always there, just in case. You never look into it. You're not supposed to, but some nights, when the wind howls too loud, you swear you see movement behind the curtain. You're not the only one with secrets. Back in the courtyard, the eastern sky is slowly turning orange. The mist is lifting. Somewhere beyond the palace walls, roosters are crowing and fishmongers are shouting, but none of that touches you. Not here. This world runs on different sounds. Paper rustling, footsteps, a throat being cleared 2 rooms away. You follow the stream of eunuchs, heading toward the king's quarters. You keep your head down. You don't speak. A few nods are exchanged, but that's it. There's a rhythm to it now, like a dance you've done so many times you barely notice your feet moving. By the time you reach the threshold of the royal chamber, the sun is just beginning to burn through the morning mist. The doors are carved from red pine and wrapped in golden fittings shaped like dragons with curled whiskers. You bow twice, then knock once, soft, deliberate. A young chamber boy opens the door. He's barely 10, his face still soft from childhood, but he's already learned to scowl with authority. He steps aside and lets you enter. The room smells of dried plum blossoms and charcoal. Heavy curtains block the light. On a raised platform near the center, the royal bedchamber looms like a ship on a quiet sea. You don't look directly at the king. You never do. Odd even if he's asleep, which he usually is. Instead, you move toward the side of the chamber and begin your inspection. You check the coals in the brazier, still warm, meaning the queen likely visited last night. The sheets are slightly wrinkled, but clean. No blood, no torn fabric. A good sign. The chamber pot, half full. You make a note of that in your head. It'll go in the daily report, even if no one ever reads it. You wipe down the lacquered screens, straighten the scrolls near the reading table, and adjust the sleeping robe folded at the foot of the bed. Every fold matters. Every wrinkle is a message. It's said that some kings could tell who entered their room simply by the pattern of their footprints on the mat. You don't know if that's true, but you believe it anyway. As you back out of the room bowing low, you pass by a side table with a small wooden carving of a phoenix. It wasn't there yesterday. A gift? A warning? A distraction? You file it away. Palace life is built on noticing the things that aren't supposed to be noticed. You exhale softly as you step back into the hallway. First inspection done. No disasters. No mysteries. You're still invisible. That's the goal. But the day is only beginning. From the royal bedchamber, your footsteps carry you toward the inner courtyard where a second set of duties waits, quieter in appearance, but far more mentally taxing. It's time for the morning rites in the royal shrine. And no, not the main one from earlier. This is the private shrine, tucked behind a corridor most court visitors never even see. Only a handful of eunuchs are permitted inside, and you're one of them. Not because you asked, you never ask for anything, but because one day a higher up nodded at you during rice distribution and said, "You still do." So now, you carry sacred scrolls. The shrine room smells like pressed lotus leaves and ash. You kneel at the threshold while an older eunuch unlocks the lacquered cabinet where the ancestral tablets are stored. The king's bloodline is lined up in tiny wooden plaques, each with names carved so finely it looks like brushwork. You don't touch. Your job is to light the oil lamp and wait. It's quiet here in a different way. Not the sleepy silence of early morning, but the kind that feels watched. Maybe it's the dozens of tiny royal names staring at you, or maybe it's your own thoughts echoing too loudly. Either way, you feel it, that weightless sense that your soul's being gently turned inside out. Every seventh day, the queen sends a silk sachet filled with dried tangerine peel to place beside her father's tablet. You carry it carefully in your sleeve now, and as you take it out and place it on the altar, you can smell its sweet, bitter tang. A few dried petals fall from the sachet as you set it down. You leave them there. Better to not interfere with grief. And that's when it hits you like it does every few mornings. You don't have an ancestral tablet. You'll never be enshrined here or anywhere. Eunuchs don't receive those kinds of honors. No matter how loyal, no matter how long you serve, you're a ghost that breathes, a shadow that signs reports. There's a fringe belief, mostly whispered among lower staff, that eunuchs live longer than most men. They say it's the absence of worldly temptation that preserves the body. Others say it's because they don't have children to stress over. A few say it's just bitterness turned into bone marrow. You don't really know, but sometimes at night, you do wonder how long your shadow might last. The lamp flickers. Time to move on. You follow the inner path toward the side chamber, where confession takes on a stranger shape. This time, it's not personal guilt. It's secrets, rumors, the things you overheard. In theory, it's for palace safety. In practice, it's glorified gossip, wearing a scholar's robe. Today, an older eunuch named Che waits with a small black notebook. You kneel beside him, barely breathing, and whisper, "Lady Nam dropped her mirror on purpose." He nods, writes it down. The rest of the court might interpret a broken mirror as an accident, but Che knows better. Everything is symbolic here. A broken mirror, a warning, or a curse. Historians still debate how much power eunuchs really wielded in courts like Goryeo or early Joseon. Some say they were nothing more than glorified servants. Others believe they were silent puppeteers, trading secrets and favors behind drawn screens. The truth? It's probably both. You've seen enough to know silence isn't the absence of power, it's just the quiet before someone falls. Your next stop takes you down a winding corridor that opens into a more humble chamber, lined with shelves of medicinal herbs, scented papers, and clean cloth. It's where the Queen's ladies retrieve beauty supplies, and where you, unfortunately, must now go. You knock, wait, and step inside. The Queen isn't here, of course, but her attendants are. They're younger than you, sharper too. Their voices are honeyed when nobles are nearby, but here they speak like knives, quick, quiet, and pointed. Oh, look, it's the crane, one says, as you place down a small porcelain jar of ginseng powder. You nod politely, say nothing, you're not allowed to. Another reaches out and pretends to dust your sleeve. Her hand brushes against the embroidery near your collarbone. Still serving the inner court, are you? Tease. Must be so dull. You smile, but not with your mouth, only your eyes, because that's the only safe way to smile here. One of them, Lady Shim, is friendlier, or at least more bored. She always asks odd questions. Do you think the king has dreams? She whispers one day as you're arranging lotus oil beside a hair comb. You pause. That's dangerous ground, but you answer anyway, quietly. Yes, but not always his own. She looks at you for a moment too long, then nods. I thought so. That night, you write that sentence down in your private notes, not because it's scandalous, but because it's true. And truth, in the palace, is rarer than gold. As you leave the chamber, carrying empty bowls and folded towels, you pass by a mirror mounted at an angle on the hallway wall. It's not a fancy mirror, just polished bronze. But as you glance at it, your reflection shimmers, and for a second, you don't recognize yourself. The robe, the hair, the pale skin, all familiar. But the expression, it's distant, watchful, almost regal. Then it steps gone. You blink and keep walking. You don't get far before a junior page rushes over, out of breath, eyes wide. He bows too low, mumbles something about urgent bedding inspection, and thrusts a small scroll into your hand. You already know what this means. It's not really about bedding. It never is. It's a coded message, a polite excuse to enter the royal bedchambers again, this time with extra scrutiny. The scroll bears the Queen's personal emblem. That's rare and risky. You tuck it into your sleeve and walk briskly, but without panic, back toward the southern wing. Your slippers tap a rhythm that echoes louder than you'd like. There's a tense energy in the air now, a kind of hum, like the palace is holding its breath. A guard at the Queen's entrance glances your way and nods once. You bow back. He unlocks the door. No questions. Inside, the Queen is sitting upright, but not facing you. Her profile is lit by the thin morning sun slicing between curtains. She's sipping from a delicate porcelain cup, hand trembling just enough for you to notice, but not mention. Two court ladies stand nearby, stiff and silent. You may approach, she says without turning. You bow deeply and step forward, keeping your eyes fixed on the floor. A second cup sits on the table, still steaming. She gestures toward it. with a slight motion of her finger. Smell. You do. Ginseng and licorice root. Normal. But there's a faint bitterness under it. Something metallic. Not poison. Not quite. But maybe a warning. You say nothing. Just nod once. The queen finally looks at you, and for a moment her gaze slices right through you. Then she waves you away. You step back, bow again, and leave the room without a word. Message received. Historians still argue whether royal women in Goryeo had real political power or simply pulled strings behind silk curtains. You've seen enough to know they had power, just wielded differently, through silence, through glances, through a cup of tea that smells almost right. He's sweating, despite the chill. He's holding a stack of bamboo slips and barking at a eunuch who clearly has no idea what he did wrong. You make your way toward the scroll room to report what you saw, carefully vaguely, when you're stopped by a minor official in red robes. You step in quietly, bow, and offer to take over. The official sneers, but hands over the slips. Make sure the ink is dry before they sep are stored. Last week's sep's batch bled. You nod. Of course. He walks off without thanks. You step into the scroll room, one of your favorite places, if you're honest. The smell of ink, the feel of smooth paper, the silence broken only by brushes against parchment. It's peaceful here, even if the content isn't. You take your place at the low desk and start sorting messages from provincial governors, updates from border patrols, one unusually thick document with a red wax seal shaped like a turtle, probably from the Department of Rights. As you work, your fingertips grow dark with ink. You dip the brush again and again, copying phrases like, grain shipment delayed due to flooding. A tiger was sighted near the southern granary. The king requests a report on the scholar Yi Spit's moon calendar proposal. Each word matters, but none are yours. You're not allowed to write your thoughts. Only copy others, preserve the voice of the court. Leave no trace of yourself. That's the job. One scroll, though, catches your eye. It sep's not official. It sep's not even on the right paper. A personal letter, folded strangely, tucked between supply logs. Curious, you unroll it slightly. Just a name, Bo-Ra, and a single phrase. It wasn't your fault. You pause. Someone smuggled this in. Someone hoped it would be found. You roll it back up and place it under the rest of the pile. There's nothing you can do, not safely. Still, the words stick to your skin like a stain no ink can hide. You finish your transcriptions just as the midday bell sounds. Your stomach growls loudly. You press your hand against it and hope no one heard. But someone always hears. An older eunuch beside you slides a tiny cloth-wrapped packet your way. Dried persimmons, sweet, chewy, stolen from yesterday's altar offerings. You glance at him. He doesn't smile, but his eyes crinkle. You bow your head in thanks, then tuck the fruit into your sleeve. Later, outside, the sun is finally high enough to warm the stone paths. You take the long way to the kitchen, not because you're lazy, but because you like passing through the garden court. This part of the palace rarely sees nobles. It's where the ginkgo trees grow in perfect lines, and where gardeners rake the pebbles into spirals no one ever steps on. The air smells like dry leaves and pine resin. You pause by the fish pond and watch a carp rise, break the surface, then vanish. They say carp become dragons if they swim upstream long enough. You wonder what eunuchs become? If anything, the kitchen is a different world entirely. Warm, chaotic, full of smells that make your stomach twist with both hunger and regret. Steamed dumplings, fermented cabbage, fish broth, rice cakes, and none of it is for you. You step around a cook barking orders and present your list. 2 trays, you say softly. One for the West Hall, one for the library annex. The head cook grunts and waves toward a table. You wait, eyes down as the trays are loaded. Carefully, perfectly, royal meals are measured not just in taste, but in balance. Too much salt, a political insult. Too little rice, a family snub. As you lift the first tray, your arms ache a little. You haven't eaten since the sesame porridge 2 nights ago. Still, you carry it steady. On your way out, a kitchen maid slips you a small rice ball wrapped in lotus leaf. You blink, she doesn't look at you, just keeps chopping. You bow slightly and tuck the ball into your other sleeve. Today, at least, you're not invisible. Balancing the first food tray, you navigate the narrow corridors toward the library annex. The sun is slanting sharply now, painting long, dusty beams across the lacquered floors. You walk with careful steps. A misplaced foot could send the king's lunch tumbling, and your position with it. You pass beneath a low archway where the wood always seems to catch on your sleeve, no matter how often you adjust. Someone once told you it was deliberately built short, so everyone, even the nobles, had to bow. A subtle architectural reminder that even knowledge has its gatekeepers. Inside the annex, it's quiet. 2 royal scholars sit cross-legged on floor cushions, deep in debate over a scroll you suspect neither of them actually understands. One glances up as you enter, nose slightly wrinkled. "Leave it there," he mutters. You place the tray down, bow and back away, making sure not to turn your back too quickly. It's a small dance you've learned. Too fast and they think you're rushing. Too slow and they think you're eavesdropping. As you exit, their voices pick up again, mid-argument. Something about the lunar calendar's inconsistency. You've heard this one before. 10 times, maybe more. They never reach a conclusion. Historians still argue whether the Goryeo dynasty truly embraced such scholarly bickering or merely tolerated it to keep the learned men out of real politics. Either way, it fills the halls with noise. You return for the second tray, this one bound for the West Hall, where a visiting courtier from Scylla is temporarily housed. He's rumored to be a cousin of someone who once advised the queen's uncle, or something. It's all a mess of relationships you've long since stopped trying to untangle. The tray is heavier this time. Meat, dried fish, sticky rice, pickled garlic. Someone's trying to impress. Probably the cooks, but maybe the queen herself. Alliances, after all, are often buttered with sesame oil. The West Hall is warmer than the rest of the palace. Either someone lit the braziers too early, or the visitor complained. The scent of sandalwood hangs thick in the air, almost too thick, like someone's hiding the smell of illness or anxiety. You deliver the tray. The visitor doesn't even look at you, just waves his fingers as if you're air that's gotten too loud. You exit and breathe in the cool corridor like it's a gift. You slip into a nearby alcove, unwrap the rice ball from your sleeve, and take a bite. It's small, barely 3 mouthfuls, but it tastes like heaven, soft, nutty, with a hint of ginger. You chew slowly, carefully, gratefully. Nearby, Two eunuchs walk past whispering about a concubine's silk robes being found inside the queen's antechamber. You pretend not to hear. Everyone pretends not to hear. That's the rule. You head next to the archive, where an elder eunuch named Sio waits, half asleep, surrounded by scrolls he probably hasn't opened in weeks. He's in charge of record continuity, which basically means he sits beside dusty cabinets and nods a lot. He perks up when he sees you. "Ah, the crane," he says. "Come to lift the veil of ignorance?" You smile politely and bow. "I have him here for the list of today's sips, seal carriers." He grunts, fumbles through a pile, and hands you a scroll that smells like dried mushrooms. You pretend not to notice the food stain on the edge. Sio's been in this post for 35 years. He remembers the last king's first son, the one who supposedly drowned during a boating festival. Some say it wasn't drowning. Some say it wasn't the first son. Sio says nothing, but he hums a particular tune when someone mentions it. Fringe detail, maybe, or maybe truth, wrapped in too much rice wine. With the scroll in hand, you return to the central wing and stop near the garden gate, where a quiet figure waits, a fellow eunuch named Min. He doesn't speak much, which makes him ideal for messages. You pass him the scroll. He nods, takes it, and vanishes like smoke through a side door. You don't ask where he's going. You never do. This task, this quiet shuffling of sealed names, is one of the most delicate you handle. These aren't delivery lists. These are people who carry the royal seals today, those tiny carved stones that hold power to move armies or empty treasuries. Who holds them matters more than most realize. Historians often overlook this detail, the quiet handoffs, the names shuffled at the last minute, the seal swapped from one silk sleeve to another. But this is how real decisions are made, not in the council halls, but in the spaces between meals and incense. As you return toward the central corridor, you notice a pair of attendants whispering near a paper screen. One points your way. You pretend not to see. You're used to this being noticed and ignored at the same time. A bell rings. Afternoon tea. You don't drink tea, not officially, but you do serve it. The tea hall is already buzzing by the time you arrive. Scholars, junior officials, and the occasional high-born widow who still fancies herself part of court life. You carry the tray with utmost care. 4 ceramic cups, each filled with pale yellow chrysanthemum tea, just the flour and hot water. You place the cups down with gentle precision. Each clink of porcelain is a syllable in a language of etiquette. One scholar is already mid-monologue, waving a brush in the air. The moral failure of officials lies not in their ignorance, but in their appetite. You almost roll your eyes. Almost. Instead, you back away and find your corner. You stand like a statue, ready to refill cups, but mostly forgotten. This is where you hear the best things, not the official decrees, but the things people say when they think only nobles are listening. Sayre the Southern Patrol saw lights near the old pagoda again. He visits the concubine Sep's quarters twice a week, never the same door. Lady Han was seen weeping by the carp pond. Each phrase sticks in your mind like burrs. Later, they'll be sorted, filtered, some will be reported, some will be kept. As you pour more hot water into a cup, you catch your reflection in the glossy surface. You look tired, not in a dramatic way, just thin, like a sheet, stretched too far across a bed frame, but you're still standing, still invisible, still necessary, and the sun is still up. Your hands still smell faintly of chrysanthemum as you carry the empty tea tray back to the servants' corridor. You move silently past the low humming conversations that echo like faraway wind. Afternoon light slants golden across the stone path outside, but you're heading deeper into the palace toward the inner gate. This part of the compound is quieter, too quiet, really. The kind of silence that seems intentional. Even the breeze sounds like it's holding its breath. You present a small token, an ivory chip etched with the Queen's private seal. You don't speak. You don't need to. He steps aside and lets you pass. You reach the outer post of the inner gate, a narrow corridor flanked by carved wooden dragons. A junior guard sits cross-legged, polishing his boots with excessive focus. He glances up, gives a curt nod, and stands. He knows why you're here. No one enters this wing without a reason or a message. Now you're walking through a passage most of the palace doesn't even know exists. A shortcut between the Queen's wing and the royal records chamber. But you're not headed for the records. Not today. You stop at a small door, tap twice, pause, tap once more. It creaks open. Inside is a narrow space with papered walls and a low wooden bench, and woman sits there, back straight, hair pinned with a silver comb shaped like a peony. She's not nobility, but she's not ordinary either. Her name is Hajin, and you've been delivering messages for her for months. What her position is, you're not entirely sure, but you've seen her speak to the Queen without bowing. That says enough. She doesn't greet you, just holds out her hand. You pass her a rolled slip of paper, no longer than your finger. She opens it, reads, and nods once. Wait here, she whispers. You do. She disappears behind a screen, and the room feels suddenly colder. You shift your weight, but don't sit. Eunuchs rarely sit in these kinds of rooms. There's a strange etiquette at play, unspoken, but real. When Hajin returns, she's holding a silk pouch tied with green thread. You recognize the thread. It's a signal. Green means personal, not official. She places it in your palm and looks you in the eye for the first time in weeks. Deliver this before sunset, she says, and no detours. You nod, tuck the pouch deep into your sleeve, and bow. Then you're gone. Historians still argue whether eunuchs acted as spies willingly or were merely exploited tools. But you know the truth lives somewhere in the space between. You don't spy, you observe, you report. You exist in silence so others can speak more freely. On your way back through the gate, the guard raises an eyebrow but says nothing. He's learned not to ask. You slip him a folded note, coded, pre-written, explaining the visit as a textile inventory review. He tucks it into his sleeve and returns to his boots. Not physically, but in the way secrets weigh differently than coins. Now you're heading toward the archives, not the big ones, but the smaller annex near the royal infirmary. The pouch in your sleeve grows heavier with each step. You enter the annex through the back, where the incense smell is strongest. A low curtain brushes against your forehead as you step inside. The archivist is waiting, old, stooped, mostly blind, but his memory is sharp as needles. Left hand, he says. You extend your left hand. He doesn't look at it, just places another object inside, a small wooden token carved with an ox. You don't know what it means. You never ask. He nods. You may go. You exit as quickly as you came, careful not to look around too much. This part of your job requires not just silence, but forgetfulness, a mental shedding of the moment. But of course, that's the hardest part. As you head back toward the main palace grounds, the noises of life return: footsteps, murmured instructions, the far off scrape of a broom across flagstones. You pass by the laundry courtyard, always steamy, always noisy, but this time it's empty. Unusually so. You step closer. A bamboo tub overflows with half wrung robes. Steam curls upward in lazy spirals. You kneel and check the fabric. Royal undergarments, washed but not yet rinsed. You roll up your sleeves. No one's here to do it, and it has to be done. You dip your hands into the hot water, almost too hot, and begin the process. Rinse, wring, rinse again. The water turns cloudy, and your hands go red, but it's almost soothing. You've done worse things today. A few minutes in, another eunuch arrives, young, nervous, reeking of mugwort salve. Sorry, he mumbles. I lost track of time. You nod. It happens. He doesn't know what you've been doing all day. He doesn't need to. You finish wringing the last robe and hang it on the bamboo line. The fabric flaps gently in the breeze, like flags at half-mast. And then, in the silence, he says, Do you ever think we stare seen? You pause. Yes, you say, adjusting the clothespin, just not as we are. He nods slowly, as if that makes sense, even if it doesn't. The sun has begun to dip. Shadows grow long, and the palace begins to prepare for evening rituals. You wipe your hands on a clean cloth, shake out your sleeves, and glance at the sky. Still time to deliver the pouch. But first, there's a stop you need to make. You head toward the royal physician Sep's quarters. You approach the royal physician's quarters with the quiet confidence of someone who knows exactly how to be invisible. The door is already ajar, propped open with a block of sandalwood. The scent, as always, hits you first, an overwhelming cloud of ginseng, dried licorice, mugwort, and something darker. You step through, your slippers making the softest sigh on the wooden floor. Inside, the space is half medical chamber, half organized chaos. Low shelves groan under the weight of herbal jars and folded silk bandages. Scrolls are tied with string and stacked carelessly beside wooden acupuncture dolls with little pins stuck in them like porcupines in agony. A long curved knife lies clean on a tray, not threatening, just honest. The physician himself is not young and not friendly. His name is Jang, and while he rarely smiles, he does have a soft spot for you. Or maybe he just likes that you don't talk. You're late, he mutters, without looking up from a patient chart. You bow slightly. Needed to rinse linen. He grunts, then jerks his chin toward the corner. Hold the lamp. No questions. You pick up the oil lamp and move to his side. On the mat before him lies a man you vaguely recognize, a scribe from the outer records office. His face is flushed, eyes half-lidded, mouth slightly open like he's mid-snore. Jang places a hand on the man's chest and nods to himself. Blood's too hot. Heart's agitated, probably drinking rice wine again, he says. You hold the lamp closer as he prepares a row of tiny glass cups, cupping treatment. You've seen it done a dozen times, and it never stops looking painful. Jang lights a small flame, places it briefly in each cup, then slaps them onto the man's back with shocking speed. The skin rises almost immediately under the vacuum, purple welts forming like blossoms of discomfort. The scribe lets out a whimper. He shall live, Jang mutters, waving the smoke away. But someone should tell his supervisor he's been sleeping in the document room again. You nod. You'll pass that along, quietly through the right person. That's what you do. You carry secrets the way others carry coins. Historians still debate the degree to which eunuchs participated in medical tasks. Some say it was limited to observation and reporting. Others believe eunuchs were trained in basic medicine to assist in emergencies. The truth is, well, you're standing in it. Jang places a cloth over the patient's back and leans in toward you. Be careful today, he says, under his breath. There's speaks tension in the queen sip's wing. You don't ask how he knows. You never do. You just nod. You help him clean the tools, place the used cups in a basin of warm vinegar water, and fold the blanket over the scribe more gently than you probably need to. Then you bow, replace the lamp, and leave through the back door. Outside, dusk has settled. The sky is bruised purple, the stars not yet brave enough to show themselves. You head east now, toward the side gate that leads out of the main palace and into the scholar's compound. The pouch in your sleeve presses against your wrist like a whisper, still unopened, still sealed. On your way, you pass the garden again, now glowing with fireflies. You pause near the stone bridge, letting the cool air coat your face. Somewhere nearby, someone's playing a flute, soft, off-key, probably an old scholar trying to remember his youth. And then, a noise, footsteps. You turn, half expecting a guard. Instead, it's Hajin. Again, she steps into the moonlight like she belongs there. Change of plan, she says. Give me the pouch. You hesitate. That step's not protocol. She sees your hesitation and steps closer. There's Stess risk. The man in the scholar's sits wing. He sits being watched. Tunnel take it. You pause, then reach into your sleeve and hand her the pouch. Did you look inside? She asks. You shake your head. She studies you for a long moment. Then, with surprising gentleness, says you should eat more. You stir looking like old paper. And then she steps gone. You exhale, not out of relief, just to let your chest stop feeling so tight. As you turn back toward the palace, a figure steps out from the shadows behind the stone lantern. It's Min, the quiet eunuch. His expression is unreadable. He holds up a small wooden tag. It's marked with the ox symbol. He nods once and disappears without a word. You walk slowly now, letting the cool night settle into your bones. You've done everything you were asked to do, said everything you were supposed to say, and still there's the lingering sense that you missed something, that the real story unfolded just a few inches to the left of where you were standing. Back inside the palace, the brazier fires are being stoked. You pass through the inner hallway where attendants carry trays of herbal tonics, scrolls of Confucian texts, and little velvet bags containing who knows what. The rhythm of evening life is returning, quiet, slow, deliberate. You return to your chamber for a moment of breath. There's a small towel waiting on the floor, warmed slightly from the laundry fires, a kindness or a coincidence. You sit down, stretch your legs, and roll your shoulders. The aches are familiar now, You don't even flinch. Then, from the corner, a junior eunuch peeks in. Message from the queen. You raise your eyebrows. She wants you to accompany the inspection of the moon viewing pavilion tonight. You nod. Of course she does. The queen's moods are like the tide. You don't fight them. You simply learn to float. The moon is full tonight. High and round like a polished coin, it hangs in the black sky with the kind of confidence you wish you could borrow just once. The moon viewing pavilion sits at the far eastern edge of the palace grounds, raised above a reflecting pool that's still as glass, a place designed for peace, and yet tonight it feels anything but. You walk the path in silence, your robe whispering against your legs, your footsteps softened by the moss-covered stones. A flicker of lantern light ahead tells you you're close. Two guards stand by the pavilion steps, not moving, not speaking. You bow, and they step aside. The queen is already inside. She sits on a cushioned bench facing the water, a shallow silver dish of tea resting untouched beside her. The light from the brazier next to her turns her face into a study of contrasts, half fire, half shadow. You step quietly into the corner, kneel, and bow. She doesn't acknowledge you, but she knows you're there. That's the way it's always been. You are presence without presence. Look at it, she says softly. You follow her gaze to the moon's reflection in the water, perfect, unbroken, like something forged from another world. Do you know, she begins, when I was a girl, I used to believe the moon was a bowl of water held in the hands of a sky goddess, that if she ever dropped it, we sit all drown in moonlight. You stay silent. It sips not a question. She lifts the tea, smells it, then places it back down. Lady Nam has been careless, she says. Tell the scribes to note her absence from morning court, but do not write the reason. Let the record suggest discretion. You bow your head slightly, the kind of bow that says, I understand. She doesn't speak for a while, just watches the moon and listens to the crickets. Historians, she says suddenly, will never know what tonight meant. They that sell write about grain yields and treaty signings, but not this. She turns her head, looks right at you, but you will. And for a moment, just one heartbeat, you feel seen, not as a eunuch, not as a servant, just as someone who noticed, someone who remembered. She rises then gracefully and exits without another word. Her attendants trail after her like soft wind. You remain behind, kneeling beside the flickering brazier, the smell of pine wood curling around your face. You take a slow breath and glance down at the pool. The moonsep's reflection is still there, unbroken. You rise and begin the inspection, as instructed. It's mostly symbolic. Check the railings, note the condition of the lanterns, ensure the pavilion's corners haven't gathered too much soot. But there's always the chance. Something has been left behind, a note, a token, a trace. You kneel beside it, untie it gently, and hide it in your sleeve. You don't read it. Not yet. You'll wait until morning, or maybe never. That's how trust works in the palace, quietly, without question. Tonight, there's only one thing out of place, a tiny white ribbon tied around the base of the farthest lantern, almost invisible. On your way back to the central hall, the air is cool and thin, your breath clouds in front of you, and your steps feel lighter than they should after such a long day. You pass a group of younger eunuchs gathered near the laundry lines, telling ghost stories in hushed voices. One swears he saw a spirit near the old well. Another claims a woman in white passed through the carp pond without making ripples. You pause, not to join, but to listen. And then one whispers. She turned, and where her face should have been, you smile, just slightly. Ghosts in the palace are as common as rumors, and sometimes they're the same thing. You walk on. At the base of the West Tower, an old friend waits, not a eunuch, not a noble, just a servant named Joe, who tends the lanterns and keeps track of palace oil. Thought I'd find you under the moon, he says, tossing you a small chestnut from his pouch. You catch it. Was the queen satisfied? He shrugs. Who knows? She did instead order a second brazier, so maybe. He chuckles, then sits on the low wall beside you. Remember when we were scared of seeing our shadows in the pond? He asks. You do. You remember it clearly. The idea that your reflection could betray you, that it might do something your body didn't. Still am a little, you say. He offers you another chestnut. You decline. You want to keep the taste of moonlight just a little longer. Eventually, you stand, bow to Joe, walk back toward your chamber. The palace is quiet again. Not the eerie silence of early morning, but the satisfied hush of a place that knows it has survived one more day. You pass the scroll room, the sleeping quarters, the shrine hall, all still, all shadowed. You reach your room, slide the door open, and step inside. On your mat, folded neatly, is a new inner robe, gray, with faint blue stitching along the hem, a mark of quiet favor. Someone noticed. You sit slowly. Your knees creak. Your spine aches, but your heart feels still. As you change out of your day robe, you find the white ribbon in your sleeve. You almost toss it away. Instead, you slip it under your mat. Then you lie back and you sleep. Not because you stir, not tired, but because tomorrow is waiting. The sun hasn't risen yet when you're stirred from sleep, not by sound, not by movement, but by stillness, the kind of deep, pressing quiet that wraps around the walls like a damp cloth. Even the birds aren't awake. You sit up slowly, the straw mat imprinting faint lines on your forearm. Your body protests, hips tight, shoulders sore, but you've grown used to that. You dress in silence. The new robe feels stiffer, less broken in than your old one, but that's how all gifts arrive, unasked, unsoftened. You fold your sleeping robe into a square and place it under the cornerstone as always, a quiet ritual to begin the day. There's no gong this morning. That's your first clue. You step outside and notice the shadows move differently. The courtyard lanterns are still burning, even though their oil should have run out an hour ago. A mistake or a sign? As you move toward the scriptorium, another eunuch falls in step beside you. It's Min. He doesn't speak, just walks with you, as if something wordless needs to be shared. At the library hall, you find 3 scrolls waiting for you, each sealed with a different wax emblem: the king's red phoenix, the queen's plum blossom, and the royal archives ox. 3 threads of power knotted together like a braid. You handle them gently, set them down in the order they were delivered, begin to transcribe. The first is a royal decree authorizing grain distribution to flood victims in the southern province. Straightforward, compassionate, political too, but that's expected. The second is more delicate, an inquiry into the recent behavior of Lady Nam, subtle language, nothing accusatory. Yet, the third is strange, with a request for medical logs from the infirmary, dated 2 weeks prior. The signature is smeared, but you recognize the brushwork. It's Hodgins. Historians still argue whether the bureaucratic systems of Goryeo were truly as efficient as records suggest, or whether the real mechanisms ran on whispered names and favors owed. You already know the answer. You finish your transcriptions with the care of someone slicing silk with a single hair. Each word matters. You do not editorialize. You do not adjust. But you do notice, and that noticing is its own kind of power. A bell chimes. Mid-morning, you make your way to the royal shrine for a second cleansing ritual, not mandatory today, but advisable. The air inside is smoky and strange. Someone burned too much mugwort, and the scent curls around your head like a heavy crown. The high priestess isn't here. Instead, a junior monk leads the chants, voice trembling slightly. You kneel, and as the words wash over you, your mind drifts, not toward the past, but toward the quiet web forming around you. Threads from the queen, from Hajin, from Joe by the lantern wall, even from Min, who never speaks, but always knows when to appear. You wonder if this is what being a spider feels like, alert, suspended, waiting for the slightest tremor on the line. After the shrine, you're summoned to the queen's wing again. This time, she doesn't speak in riddles. Lady Nam will retire from court duties. She says plainly. You nod. You will ensure the scroll reflects her health, not her shame. Again, you nod. Then she leans forward, her voice lower, and you will make sure Hajin is not named. A beat passes. You bow lower. Of course. She turns back to the window, where cranes are pecking near the water's edge. People think eunuchs see nothing, she says, that you are eyes without opinion. But I have learned the ones who watch without speaking understand everything. You say nothing. It's the most powerful thing you can do. Later, you find yourself walking toward the scribe's chamber once more when you're interrupted by Joe. New lanterns for the eastern walk, he says, handing you a scrap of silk with measurements scribbled in charcoal. Too many shadows lately. He winks. You get the message. You take the long way there, passing the queen's outer court, the garden steps, and finally arriving at the corridor near the concubine's quarters. The lantern hooks are indeed empty, unlit, darker than they should be. You hang the new lanterns quietly, but as you do, you notice something wedged into the corner post, a sliver of wood. On it, carved so finely, you almost miss it. A single character, Ash. You pocket it. You don't understand it yet, but you will. Back at your chamber, you sit on your mat and unroll the white ribbon from the night before. You still haven't looked, not because you're afraid, but because you know that once you read it, you'll be involved in a way you can't undo. You breathe, then open it. Just one sentence. She knows. You fold it again. Return it to your sleeve. Evening will come soon. More messages. More messages. More silence. But right now, you lie back, and for the first time in days, you let yourself blink. You wake before the sun again. But this time, it's not because of the cold or the gong or even the whisper of footsteps in the corridor. You wake because something in your chest is ticking, a slow rhythmic thrum like a thread being pulled through silk. You sit up. The chamber is dark, but warm from the laundry fires nearby. Outside, the hush of morning hasn't yet lifted, but you can feel the palace turning just below the surface, like a giant koi preparing to flick its tail. You dress slowly, methodically. Each layer of cloth is a kind of armor. You pin your sash, smooth the hem, check the hidden pocket inside your sleeve. The ribbon is still there, as is the sliver of wood carved with the word ash. You still don't know what it means, but you keep it. Your first task is in the council wing. You walk the stone corridor, counting your steps without meaning to. The doors are already open when you arrive, revealing a scroll-covered table surrounded by two ministers, three junior officials, and one very sleepy scribe who's trying and failing to stay awake. You kneel at the edge of the room. You're not there to speak, only to observe. One of the ministers gestures sharply toward a map laid out on the table. The border raids are becoming more frequent, he says, and still the grain goes south. Another snorts. We starve in the north to win love in the south. Very poetic, very foolish. The scribe's head nods forward. He jerks awake. You suppress a smile, then a phrase that makes everyone stop. The queen insists on this. A silence, heavy, measured. You note the change in posture. The way back straighten. Voices soften. The queen's influence hangs in the room like invisible smoke. You don't write anything down, but you memorize everything. Historians still debate whether court eunuchs were passive recorders or active participants in political maneuvering. Some scrolls portray them as mere tools. Others hint at whispered alliances. You're living proof that both can be true. The meeting ends in a flurry of bows and hasty footsteps. You remain a moment longer, allowing the dust to settle. Then you rise and collect the notes. Not the official ones, the real ones, the ones scribbled on the backs of spare paper. You fold them, tuck them away. Next stop, the Queencep's herb storage room. You're not expected there today, which is exactly why you go. You make your way down the corridor near the kitchen wing, then up the narrow staircase behind the bathhouse. The door to the herb room is unguarded. That in itself is strange. Inside, the shelves are lined with small drawers, each labeled in tiny brushstrokes: foxglove, lotus, clove, deer antler, powdered pearl. But you're not here for ingredients. You're looking for patterns. And you find one. Near the back wall, two drawers are slightly out of alignment. You slide the first open. Empty. The second contains a folded cloth, and inside that cloth, two wax-sealed envelopes. One bears the Queencep's seal, the other the plum blossom mark, but it's not quite right. You pocket them both. Then, a noise. You freeze. Footsteps. Then the slow, unmistakable creak of the outer door. You slip behind a curtain. Heart thudding. A voice whispers. It sets not in the scroll room. I check twice. Another voice. Lower, familiar. She must sit, moved it. Wait for the inspection. We sit, swap the boxes then. They leave. You exhale. Inspection. Boxes. Swapping. You don't know what's being moved or why, but it's clear now. Something's brewing, and you're not just a shadow anymore. You're in it. You make your way back toward the Queen's wing, this time cutting through the upper terrace. There, you see Hajin alone, pacing the walkway like a woman waiting for a ghost. She sees you, pauses. Do you trust me? She asks. You consider your answer carefully. I don't need to, you say. I observe. She nods, almost sadly. That sip's what makes you useful. She places something in your hand. A key to the moon viewing pavilion, she says. There spits a letter inside the railing post. Burn it after you read it. You slip the key into your robe. She leans closer. Naori, they'll try to say it was her illness, but it wasn't that illness. You understand? You do. That evening, as the sun spills gold over the eaves of the palace, you make your way to the pavilion. No one stops you. No one asks. You kneel by the far railing, find the loose board, and slide it open. Inside, a letter sealed not with wax, but thread, red thread, looped 3 times. You break it. It accepts a confession. Lady Nam, a plot, a diverted shipment, an attempted poisoning meant for someone else. You sit there, a long time after reading it, watching the moon rise. Then you strike a flint, burn the letter, watch the ashes curl into the air like ghosts freed from their names. When it's done, you scatter the ashes into the pond. They ripple outward, touching the surface of the moon's reflection. You don't estet smile. You don't stet cry. You simply turn and walk away, because tomorrow someone will ask you what happened, and you still know. Inside, you find a folded cloth lying across your mat. You return to your chamber late, later than usual. The moon is high again, but thinner now, like it's been shaved down by all the secrets it's had to witness these past nights. Tonight, the air smells different. There's something sharp in it. Burnt cedar, maybe, or the aftershock of too many incense sticks lit too fast. The palace doesn't speak in words. It speaks in scent and silence. And tonight, it's telling you something's shifted. You unfold it. You close the door, heart suddenly pounding like a drum in a hollow chest. Not a robe, a message. The box is already moved. The seal is not real. No name. No signature. Just that. Inside, written with ink so faint, it seems barely legible. Your mind races. You sit back, the message heavy in your lap, the inspection, the swapped box, the seal. It all loops back to the queen, or perhaps to someone pretending to act on her behalf. You rise again. Sleep is no longer an option. You need answers. And that means visiting the one place most eunuchs never dare go after dusk, the Hall of Seals. It's small, almost modest, for something so important, a square room lined with locked compartments, each one holding the carved symbols of royal authority. You've only been here once before, under supervision. This time, you're going alone. You make your way under cover of quiet. The palace is asleep, mostly, just a few guards patrolling in pairs. You move like you belong, eyes down, hands tucked into your sleeves. No one stops you. The trick isn't to be unseen, it's to be unremarkable. When you reach the hall, you pause. There one lantern flickers inside. That step's not normal. You step in and bow toward the central cabinet, even though no one's watching, especially because no one's watching. Then you see it. One compartment, ajar. Inside, a seal. The queen's, or what looks like it. You pick it up. Weigh it. Something steps off. Too light. You turn it over and spot the flaw, a missing fleck near the base. You've handled the queen's seal before. This isn't it. a replica, a forgery, which means decisions are being made, scrolls being signed under false authority, and you know who might be behind it. You leave quickly, carefully. At the base of the northern tower, you find Joe still awake, tending to a flickering lantern. He looks up. You look like someone who knows too much, he says. You crouch beside him. I need to know where the real seal is, you whisper. He pauses, then sighs. Hajin took it. 3 nights ago, she said it wasn't safe anymore, said it had to disappear before someone used it against the queen. You lean back against the cold stone. This explains the false seal, the letter, the whispers. And yet, it doesn't feel like betrayal. It feels like defense. She has it still, you ask? He shrugs. I don't fear no, but if she does, she wants it'd be easy to find. Not now. You thank him, rise, and then you hear it, the pounding of boots. Guards, coming from the western wing. You move quickly to intercept, or at least to observe. They pass by you without notice, rushing toward the queen's quarters. You follow at a distance, heart in your throat. When you arrive, the door is flung open. Inside, chaos. Ladies in waiting, clutching at sleeves. An overturned table, a shattered teacup, and at the center, still composed, sits the queen, face pale, eyes sharper than you've ever seen. She sees you, lifts a hand. The room stills. Escort Lady Nam to the inner chambers, she says quietly. She is no longer fit for court service. You don't see Lady Nam, but you hear her sobbing. 2 guards escort her out moments later. The queen turns to you. Did you know? She asks. You meet her gaze. No, you say truthfully, but I suspected. She nods once, then gestures for you to come closer. You kneel beside her. She holds out a small pouch. You take it. Inside the real seal. She never lost it, never let it out of her reach. Let them think it was stolen, she whispers. Let them believe I was fooled. Why? You ask. She smiles faintly. Because sometimes the illusion of weakness buys more safety than power ever could. You understand now. She played them, all of them, and maybe even you. You return to your chamber just before dawn, hands shaking, mind spinning. You tuck the pouch into a compartment beneath your mat. Then sit, not to rest, but to remember, because someone must, and you are always watching. You lie still, but your mind keeps walking through corridors, past whispers, over scrolls and under doors. You trace the path of the seal, the echo of Hajin Sep's voice, the cold precision in the Queen Sep's words. Let them think I was fooled. You don't sleep. At sunrise, your body rises before your will does. Your knees ache, your spine cracks like old paper. But there's no time for fatigue. The inspection of the storage halls is today, a quarterly affair that no one enjoys and everyone fears. You rinse your face, straighten your robe, and step into the slow river of daily ritual once again. The storage compound is massive, a long building of clay-tiled roofs and thick cedar walls with over 100 compartments of grain, silk, medicinal roots, weapons, and ink supplies. Today you're assigned to ink and correspondence, which means you'll spend the next several hours unrolling scrolls that haven't been touched in years. You work in silence, dust rising with every shift of the parchment. You note inconsistencies, wrong wax, misplaced signatures, the occasional missing name. Nothing treasonous, just sloppy. but sloppy can become dangerous here. Beside you, a junior eunuch named Tyke works quickly, too quickly, almost nervously. He glances around, leans toward you, and whispers, "They say the queen had Lady Nam buried alive." You blink slowly, then shake your head. "She seps in the countryside," you say. "Retired." He frowns. "But that sip's not what the guard said." You pause and look him in the eye. "Then maybe the guards shouldn't stat be talking." He flushes, returns to his scrolls. Rumors spread fast. Truth moves quieter. Later, you take the daily findings to the archive supervisor. He doesn't even look up, just waves toward a pile of reports. You place your scroll gently on top and step back. Then you feel it, a presence behind you. It's Das Mensen. They nods once and tilts his head. Message received. You follow him through a maze of hallways and side doors into a small back chamber you've never entered before. The walls are lined with empty bookcases. A single cushion sits in the center. Hajin is already there. She looks thinner, more tired, but her eyes, they burn like coals. "Sit," she says. You do. She holds out a folded parchment. "It steps time," she says. "To record it properly." You hesitate. "Record what?" She smiles faintly. "The truth." She hands you the parchment. Blank. "You Zinfer the only one who knows enough. The queen will protect you for now. But one day, these things must be known." You unroll it slowly, and you begin to write. Not the official version, the real one, about the false seal, the diverted shipment, the poison meant for the scholar, not the queen, about the letter hidden in the railing, about the whispers traded over rice balls and laundry steam, that you don't should embellish, you don't should theorize. You just describe, as you always have. Min stands guard at the door. Hajin disappears into the shadows again. She always was a shadow dressed as a person. When the account is finished, you roll the parchment and place it into a plain lacquered case. You write no name on the outside, no date. That's just a symbol, a single crane with one wing folded. You hide the case in the third shelf of the archive's forgotten annex, behind a row of scrolls no one has opened since the reign of the last king. It will wait there until someone needs it. That night, you're back at the laundry courtyard. The air is thick with steam, the moon thin as a thread. You wring out royal robes in silence, the scent of ash and mugwort clinging to your skin. Joe walks by, hands in his sleeves. "You look like a man with a heavy sleeve," he says. You smile. "Just a little, maybe." He nods. You know what makes the difference between a servant and a ghost. You raise an eyebrow. "A servant is forgotten while alive," he says. "A ghost is remembered only after death." You nod. "So what does that make me?" Joe shrugs. "I think you stir, still deciding." He tosses you a roasted chestnut, warm from the fire. You bite into it slowly. The sweetness floods your mouth, and for a moment, just a moment, there is peace. You finish your laundry, hang the robes, and walk back to your chamber. Inside, everything is as you left it. Your mat, your robe, the hidden compartment beneath the floor. You place a single sprig of pine inside, next to the seal pouch. Not for luck, just to remember what the forest smells like. Then you lie down and breathe. Euster still here, still watching, still waiting. The next morning arrives slower than the rest. Not because the sun is lazy, but because your body, is every joint aches, like you've been running in your sleep. Your dreams offered no rest, only flickers of memory and shadows of the Queen Sep's voice repeating, "Let them believe I was fooled." You dress without thought. Each movement is habit carved into bone. Your assignment today? Record keeping, not the grand affairs of state. No military plans or noble disputes. Today it's the ledgers. Who entered which room? Who spoke to whom? Which supplies went where? Boring, you might think, but boring is where the real patterns hide. You settle into your seat at the far end of the scriptorium, cushioned, lit by a high window that lets in just enough sun to see but not enough to burn. A pile of slips waits for you, bundled in red string. You begin, quill in hand. Scholar Yi entered Eastern Archive, unaccompanied. 2 jade bowls transferred from Queen Sip's hall to infirmary. Inkstone chipped, replaced with reserve piece from Western storeroom. You pause at the next note. Servant Shin missing. Last seen day before Lady Namset's departure. You don't react outwardly, but inside, your pulse skips. Servant Shin was the Queen Sep's mirror handler. You remember him. Always quiet, always polishing the bronze to a shine, so fine it caught, not just faces, but moods. You make a private mark beside the note, a tiny dot, barely noticeable. It means follow up later. Historians still argue whether court eunuchs were allowed to keep personal codes in their logs. Officially, no. Unofficially, you'd be shocked how many dots, curls, and misplaced commas are carrying centuries of secrets. You finish the bundle, return the stack to the archive vault. On your way out, you bump into Take again, nervous as usual. They spur checking rooms, he whispers. All the servant halls. Something Sep's missing. What? You ask, already knowing. The seal, he hisses. You keep walking, a little faster now. They don't know it was never missing, only hidden, only played. But if they're searching now, someone else must be pulling threads from the outside. You find Min near the shrine steps, where he's pretending to sweep ash from a brazier that doesn't need sweeping. You lean close. They spare looking for the seal. He nods without stopping. You pause. Do we tell her? He doesn't stat answer, because it sets not a question. Back at your chamber, you check the floorboard. Still there, still untouched. You don't fit move it. Not yet. Instead, you write a scroll, not with names, but with directions. If this is found, it will look like a delivery list. But anyone who knows the pattern, the Queen's own cipher, will read between the lines. You roll the scroll, tuck it into your robe, and prepare to deliver it to Hajin. But you never get the chance. A runner intercepts you. You stare needed at the Queen Sep's hall. You don't even ask why. You just go. When you arrive, the hall is oddly quiet. The usual bustle is missing. No attendants. No guards. Inside, the Queen sits alone. Her hair is loose. Her robe pale green, unadorned. Something is wrong. She doesn't look up. Sit, she says. You kneel. She breathes in deeply. They say the seal is gone. You nod once. They say you took it. Your throat tightens. She finally meets your gaze. Did you? You could lie. You could tell her Hajin took it, that it was a game, a ploy, a protection. But something in her eyes tells you she already knows. I protected it, you say. She nods. Then, good. She rises, walks to the window, and opens the lattice. The breeze stirs her hair like she's part of the scenery. "I'm tired," she says. Not in the way of someone who wants a nap, but in the way of someone who's carried too many people on her back for too many years. "I need you to do something," she says. You bow your head. "Anything." She turns a rare softness in her expression. "When they ask about the seal, tell them I wept." "That surprises you." "You?" She nods. "Let them think I broke, that I feared a traitor in my midst, that I clutched at your sleeve, begged for help." You wait, then ask quietly, "And did you?" She smiles. "I once said remember." You bow low, deeper than you have in months. Then she hands you a new scroll. This is the version they write down. The one they is ascend to the outer courts. But you remember the real one. You nod. You are a scribe, but also a witness. And now, a vault. That night, back in your chamber, you rewrap the real seal in cloth. Add 1 drop of pine oil, then slide it into a hollow beneath the floorboards where the queen's name is carved, only visible in moonlight. You sit beside it, brush in hand, and write, "Truth, held until needed." Then you rest, and this time you really sleep. The days that follow drift by in strange quiet, not peaceful, never peaceful, but suspended, like the palace itself is holding its breath. You still rise before dawn. You still bathe in cold water. You still trace your steps through the same old corridors. But something has shifted. You feel it in the way people look at you now, not directly, but sideways, like you're a book they're trying to read without opening. No one mentions the seal again, not officially, but unofficially, it lingers everywhere. In the way the kitchen servants go quiet when you enter, in the double-knotted robes of the guards at the queen's door, then the way Hajin doesn't appear for 3 days straight. You keep your mouth shut, your sleeves long, your tasks precise. Today, using back in the scroll chamber. The task is deceptively simple. Organize the seasonal reports, hundreds of scrolls from all corners of the kingdom, some dating back 20 years. Dust coats them in a fine skin. You sneeze once, then again, then get to work. Your fingers grow numb, not from cold, but repetition. Unroll, skim, re-roll, stack. It's almost meditative, until one scroll refuses to roll smoothly. You open it again. There, on the margin, is a mark, the symbol you haven't seen in years, 3 tiny dots arranged in a triangle. You blink. That was the code used by the late prince's attendants before his death, before the incident no one talks about. You glance around, no one watching. You study the scroll closer. It's a weather report from a decade ago, but the wording is off. Unseasonable frost, followed by flowering. You pause. That step's not meteorology. It steps metaphor. You decipher it slowly. A message, hidden for years. It names someone, a noble, still alive, still powerful, a man now sitting on the advisory council to the queen. You don't know what to do with this. Not yet. You copy it carefully, discreetly, roll the copy into a fresh tube and mark it with a small smudge of ink. You'll place it with your other truths. The private archive, the shelf no one else opens. Later that evening, Min finds you at the laundry yard. His expression is unreadable as always. He hands you a folded square of paper. From her, he says simply, "It's steps from Hajin." You open it when you're alone, Only 3 words burn the names. You understand immediately. The letter you copied, the one you almost stored. It's too dangerous, too old, too connected. You take it out. Walk to the back kitchen where the ash pit is kept. You strike the flint. Hold the scroll over the flame. The fire eats the paper slowly, reluctantly. You whisper the names as they burn, just once, so they'll be remembered, even if no one sees them written. Ash curls into the sky. Gone. You return to your quarters with soot on your fingertips. That night, you dream of the seal, of hands reaching for it, some covered in blood, some in silk, some in nothing at all, but none of them are yours. And then you wake. Notice still night, but something's wrong. The air feels thick. Wrong. You sit up, and then you hear it, running footsteps. Panic. You step outside. Someone has shouting. Fire. You follow the glow. It's coming from the west wing. Smoke billows like a ghost over the palace roof. Servants run with buckets. Guards shout orders. A brazier must have tipped, or so they say. But you see it for what it is, a distraction. In the chaos, you notice a figure darting across the courtyard toward the archive wing. You follow, silent and low. The figure disappears inside the scroll vault. You wait 10 breaths, then follow. Inside, the scent of smoke mixes with old paper. You see the intruder, hooded, digging through the unmarked shelf. Your shelf. You step forward, and it steps someone you know. He turns, a minor clerk, one who always smiled too easily, bowed too often. I was told it was here, he says. The scroll, the real one. You say nothing. He sees your expression. Freezes. You shake your head. Just look at him. Please, he whispers. I need to know what happened. Some truths Dunhara protect. You say. They only burn. You let him. He stares at you. Then flees. You check the shelf. Empty. You blink. Then reach behind the inner panel. There it is. Still tucked away. He never found it. You breathe. And then, because the smoke is creeping into the corridor, you remove it. You walk outside as the fire is being stamped out. The queen stands on the terrace, watching. You pass by her. Stop just beside. You don't yet speak. You just let the sealed scroll brush her sleeve. She takes it without looking. Everything else stays quiet, as it always does. You return to your chamber. You wash your hands. You hang your robe. And for the first time in weeks, you let yourself weep. Not loudly, just enough to remind your body it's still human. Then you sleep and dream nothing. Morning breaks not with a gong, not with whispers or footsteps, but with bird song, real bird song. A lark perches just outside your chamber window, its feathers puffed against the cool air. You lie still, listening, trying to decide if this is a gift or an omen. Eventually, you rise, not because duty calls, but because routine is the only thing left that feels familiar. Your robe is still damp from the night before. Your hands ache. The skin around your knuckles is cracked. You've been clenching them in your sleep again. You bathe, dress, step outside. The palace looks the same, but it feels different. The fire left no major damage, only smoke-stained corners and a few singed tiles. But the event has shaken something loose. The servants move a little faster. The guards hold their spears a little tighter. The queen hasn't appeared since sunrise. You begin your day in the outer courtyard, checking supply scrolls with the steward. The numbers don't matter. The ink does. Some scrolls were removed during the night, replaced, swapped. You nod and make a mental note. Later, you walk the perimeter, ostensibly to inspect lantern posts, but really to feel where the story has shifted. You find Joe by the southeast pond, scooping out floating petals. He looks up, squints. Thought you'd be gone. You sit beside him on the low wall. Why would I leave, you ask? He shrugs. Because ghosts done stead live here long. You smile. Then maybe I stem not a ghost yet. He offers you a pickled plum. You take it, chew slowly. The taste is sour, but clean. Joe gestures toward the water. You know every emperor is remembered by a temple name, something grand, but we forget who built the bridges, who planted the trees, who made sure the seal was never forged. You nod, because they stare not supposed to be remembered. Joe tosses a pebble into the pond. I think you will be, he says. You don't want that reply. That afternoon, you're summoned. Not by a runner or a scroll, but by men. He leads you through the Queen's private corridor, one few have walked since the early days of her reign. She sits alone in a room filled with papyrus fans and faded calligraphy. Her robe is dark, her eyes darker. She doesn't stand when you enter. You kept it safe, she says. You bow. You told no one. You bow deeper. She holds out a small object, wood, lacquered, no bigger than your palm. You recognize it immediately, the seal of Shadow Witness. It's not official, not recorded, but it has existed for generations, passed only to one. You don't first it move. She places it gently into your hands. You saw, she says. You remembered, now you guard. You feel its weight. Heavy, cold, alive. She nods toward the door. You are dismissed. You step outside, the seal tucked inside your robe, and with it, your old life folds quietly away. You are no longer just a eunuch. You are a record, a vault, a witness. You spend the rest of the evening walking the palace, once more through the shrine, once more through the library, once more through the garden court. Each step is a farewell. You end at the moon viewing pavilion. The water is still. The stars are faint. The moon is gone tonight. You sit and wait, not for someone, but for the stillness to settle. When it does, you lie back on the bench, hands folded, eyes open, because now you are the memory. You are the one who watched. You are the one who kept the seal from burning. So now, let your breathing soften. Let your shoulders fall just a little heavier onto the bed, or the pillow, or the floor, wherever you are right now. Let the air around you still, like the water at the moon viewing pavilion, reflecting not just what is above, but what was once below. You followed a life through silence and shadows, through folded scrolls and unspoken truths. You've stepped through narrow halls and smoky temples, crossed into places most will never see, not because they're locked, but because they're forgotten. You were there, in the rhythm of the ink brush, in the careful fold of a robe, in the weight of a seal passed from hand to hand. You've learned how history really moves, not loudly, but in whispers. And now, the palace is quiet again. The corridors sleep. The lanterns flicker one last time before morning breaks. And you can rest too, because the seal is safe. The truth is remembered. And for now, that sep's enough. So go ahead, close your eyes. Breathe in the scent of old pine and ink. Let it carry you gently out of the palace, into the stillness, into sleep.